If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider liking, sharing, and subscribing to the channel. Sharing it with your friends and family helps spread knowledge, and when we help others grow, we grow too. Thank you so much for listening. Let's dive into the podcast. The King's Final Day, the death of Elvis Presley. August 16th, 1977. The morning of August 16th, 1977, started like any other at Graceland. Elvis moved through his usual routine, but something felt different. His girlfriend Ginger Alden later said he seemed restless that night. He couldn't sleep. Around 4 a.m., Elvis told Ginger he was going to the bathroom to read. She dozed off. Hours passed in silence. At 2:30 p.m., Ginger found him. Elvis lay face down on the bathroom floor. His body was cold. She screamed for help. Joe Esposito, Elvis's road manager, rushed upstairs. He tried mouth to mouth. Nothing worked. They called 911 at 2:33 p.m. The operator heard panic in the voice. "We need an ambulance at Graceland." The paramedics arrived within minutes. They found a 42-year-old man who looked much older. His face was purple. His tongue hung out. Charlie Crosby, one of the first responders, later said something strange. The body felt like it had been dead for hours, not minutes. At Baptist Memorial Hospital, doctors worked for 30 minutes. They couldn't bring him back. Dr. George Nicopolis, Elvis's personal doctor, announced the time of death, 3:30 p.m. But questions started immediately. Why did it take so long to call for help? The bathroom door was locked from the inside, yet somehow Ginger got in. Hospital staff whispered about the body's condition. Something didn't add up. The coroner, Dr. Jerry Francisco, made a quick decision. "Heart failure," he announced. "No autopsy needed." This rushed judgment raised eyebrows. Other doctors disagreed. They wanted more tests. The death certificate listed the cause as cardiac arrhythmia. But the toxicology report told a different story. Elvis had 10 different drugs in his system. The levels were shocking. News crews gathered outside Graceland within hours. Walter Cronkite interrupted regular TV shows. "Elvis Presley died today," he said. The world stopped. Fans refused to believe it. They crowded the gates, crying, shouting that it couldn't be true. Some claimed they saw him breathing in the coffin. Others said he moved his fingers. The funeral felt rushed. Only family and close friends attended the private service. Photos from inside the coffin looked odd to many. The nose seemed different. The sideburns appeared fake. Vernon Presley, Elvis's father, acted strangely during interviews. His answers felt rehearsed. He avoided eye contact when discussing the death. Within days, people started asking hard questions. Why close the investigation so fast? Why refuse more detailed tests? The official story had holes that grew bigger each day. The mystery was born in those first 24 hours. Every official statement created new doubts. Every witness account contradicted another. The king was gone, but the questions were just beginning. The first clues, Sightings and Strange Occurrences, 1977 to 1978. The news hit the world on August 16, 1977. Elvis Presley was gone, but within hours, something strange began to happen. A man walked through Memphis Airport that very evening. He wore dark sunglasses and kept his head down. The name on his ticket read, John Burroughs. Airport workers whispered among themselves. They had seen that walk before, that familiar way of moving through a crowd. John Burroughs was a name Elvis had used many times before when he wanted to travel in secret. Why would someone use it now? The timing felt too perfect to be chance. At Graceland, the mansion where Elvis lived, curious things started happening. Fans gathered outside the gates to mourn, but some noticed a figure watching from the upstairs windows. The curtains would move, a shadow would appear, and then vanish. The staff said no one should be up there. Phone calls came to radio stations. People claimed they had seen Elvis at gas stations, restaurants, and shopping centers. Most could be explained away. Grief makes people see things that aren't there. But some stories were different. A truck driver in Alabama swore he had coffee with Elvis at a roadside diner. He described scars and birthmarks that only the real Elvis would have. A woman in Louisiana took a blurry photograph of a man who looked exactly like the king. The picture showed someone trying to hide behind a newspaper. Then came the music. In 1979, a singer called Orion appeared. He wore a mask and sounded exactly like Elvis. His voice was so similar that even experts couldn't tell the difference. The record company said Orion was just a talented impersonator. But the timing seemed strange. Why now? Why so soon after Elvis supposedly died? Letters arrived at newspapers from people claiming to have inside information. Some said Elvis had faked his death to escape the pressures of fame. Others whispered about government protection programs. The stories grew wilder with each telling. Investigators began collecting evidence. They found flight records, hotel registrations, and credit card receipts. All showed activity under names Elvis had used before. The paper trail continued long after August 16th. The world had expected to mourn. Instead, millions found themselves asking questions. Had they really lost their hero? Or was something much stranger happening? Each new sighting added fuel to the fire. What started as grief slowly transformed into hope. Maybe, just maybe, Elvis was still out there somewhere. Investigations and unresolved questions. Probing the official narrative. Late 1970s to 1980s. The Memphis coroner's office had seen many cases, but this one would haunt them for decades. Dr. Jerry Francisco signed the death certificate with steady hands, yet whispers began almost immediately. The official cause seemed straightforward enough, but something felt wrong to those who looked closer. The first red flag came from the autopsy itself. Witnesses described a body that didn't match what fans remembered. The wait listed seemed impossible for someone who had performed just weeks earlier. Medical staff who had seen Elvis in his final months couldn't reconcile the official measurements with their memories. Then came the toxicology report. Sealed, locked away. The family requested privacy, but curious minds wondered why. What substances were found? How much? The silence only made people ask more questions. Journalists started digging. They found strange gaps in the timeline. Hospital records that didn't add up. Staff members who suddenly refused to talk. One nurse claimed she was told to forget what she saw that August day. Another said important documents went missing from files. The FBI connection emerged slowly, like pieces of a puzzle scattered in the wind. Freedom of Information Act requests revealed something shocking. The federal government had been watching Elvis for years. Files mentioned his willingness to help with undercover work. Some papers were heavily blacked out, hiding secrets that made readers wonder what Elvis had really been involved in. Independent researchers became obsessed. They compared medical records with concert footage. They studied photographs of the funeral, noting details that seemed off. The casket appeared heavier than expected. Security was unusually tight, even for a celebrity funeral. Family members gave conflicting interviews over the years. Some stories changed, dates shifted, details that once seemed certain became fuzzy. Elvis's inner circle, once loyal and silent, began sharing different versions of events as time passed. Media debates erupted on television and radio. Experts argued about medical evidence. Former employees shared strange memories. A security guard claimed he saw Elvis leave Graceland after the official time of death. A pilot said he flew someone matching Elvis's description to another state. Each contradiction fed the growing doubt. Why were certain records sealed for decades? Who made that decision? The toxicology report that could settle many questions remained hidden, creating more mystery than answers. The climate of suspicion grew thicker each year. Every sealed file, every changed story, Every refused interview added fuel to the fire. The official version began to crack under the weight of too many unanswered questions. What had really happened that August day in Memphis? Enduring mystery, documented sightings and claims into the 21st century. The 1980s brought something strange. Photographs started appearing in newspapers and magazines. They showed a man at grocery stores, gas stations, and small cafes. The man wore sunglasses and kept his head down. But his face looked familiar. Too familiar. The first picture came from Michigan. A woman said she saw Elvis buying groceries. She took a quick photo with her camera. The image was blurry, but the shape of the face made people stop and stare. The local paper printed it on the front page. Within days, similar photos came from Texas, California, and New York. Television shows picked up the story. They brought experts to study the pictures. Some said the nose was right. Others pointed to the jawline. A few claimed they could see the famous scar on his lip. But skeptics said the images were too dark, too distant, too convenient. Then came the videos. A home movie from 1988 showed a man at a wedding in Arkansas. He sat in the back row, singing quietly along with the music. His voice carried across the room. Several guests turned to look. Someone with a video camera captured 30 seconds of footage. When that tape reached the news stations, millions of people watched it over and over. The man in the video moved like Elvis. He tilted his head the same way. His hands gestured with familiar rhythm. But the quality was poor. The lighting was bad. Experts argued about what they were seeing. More stories followed. A waitress in Tennessee said Elvis came to her diner every Tuesday for 2 months. She described his order perfectly: peanut butter, banana, and bacon sandwich. A security guard in Las Vegas claimed he spoke with Elvis backstage at a show. The man knew things only the real Elvis would know. Each new report brought fresh excitement. Fans traveled hundreds of miles to visit the places where Elvis was supposedly seen. They interviewed witnesses. They searched for more evidence. Some found it. Others came home disappointed. The internet changed everything. Photos spread faster than ever before. People could analyze them on their computers. They zoomed in on faces, compared bone structure, and measured distances between features. Technology that once belonged only to government agencies was now in everyone's home. But the same technology that helped believers also helped doubters. Digital experts could spot fake photos more easily. They found telltale signs of editing and manipulation. What seemed like proof to some looked like clever deception to others. The mystery grew stronger with each passing year. New witnesses came forward. Old stories were retold with fresh details, and somewhere in the space between belief and doubt, the legend of Elvis Presley's survival found new life. Legacy and truth, where the evidence leads. The medical examiner's report sits in a file cabinet somewhere in Memphis. The words are clear: heart failure, prescription drugs, death at 3:30 in the afternoon. Yet 47 years later, people still whisper different stories. Dr. Jerry Francisco signed that death certificate. He had examined hundreds of bodies before Elvis. His reputation was solid. The autopsy photos exist. The toxicology results were documented. Every medical professional who reviewed the case reached the same conclusion. But then there are the other details that make people pause. The funeral felt strange to those who attended. Some family members seemed distant. The casket was unusually heavy. A few guests whispered that something felt wrong. These small moments planted seeds of doubt that grew into wild theories. Priscilla Presley has spoken about that day many times. Her pain was real. Her tears were genuine. She has never wavered from the official story. Lisa Marie, just 9 years old then, lost her father. The family's grief was witnessed by dozens of people who knew them well. Yet sightings began almost immediately. A man at a gas station in Michigan, someone boarding a plane in Chicago, a figure in sunglasses buying groceries in California. Each story spread like wildfire. Each witness seemed certain they had seen the king. The FBI files tell their own story. Hundreds of reports, investigations into death threats Elvis had received, records of his fear about certain people who wanted to harm him. These documents show a man living in genuine terror during his final months. Some researchers point to Colonel Parker's behavior after the death, his quick deals with merchandising companies, his immediate focus on making money from Elvis's image. They argue this proves he knew Elvis was still alive and needed cash fast. Others note how Parker had always been obsessed with money. His actions after Elvis died matched his behavior when Elvis was living. Nothing had really changed except the source of income. The witness protection program theory sounds compelling until you examine the details. The program existed in 1977, but Elvis's situation did not match their typical cases. He was not a criminal turning state's evidence. He was a performer with drug problems and health issues. Medical experts have reviewed the autopsy findings repeatedly. Independent doctors agree with the original conclusions. Elvis's health had been declining for years. His weight had ballooned. His prescription drug use was documented by multiple physicians. Still, the questions remain. Why do so many people find the official story hard to accept? Perhaps because legends are not supposed to die young. Perhaps because we need our heroes to survive somehow, somewhere, beyond the reach of ordinary human frailty. The evidence points in one direction. The heart wants to believe in another.